Hello and welcome to our Learn the Lessons interview series where I, Phil Webster, interview successful people from across all different walks of life, from sport to health, education and business. Our goal here is to learn the key lessons to success from the successful. Every day we are always learning, so why wouldn't we want to learn the best from those that have already achieved what we want? Today I am interviewing Anthony Balcombe. Anthony is the founder and creator of the WA Fitness Network, one of the largest networks of health professionals and practitioners. He owns a successful massage business and is big into alternative medicine and mindfulness. Anthony is a passionate educator and entrepreneur, and I am super excited to learn the lessons from this man today. So, hello and welcome, Anthony.
Phil, thank you for having me on your podcast. To be number 2, it's actually an honor. So thank you very much for having me on here.
Mate, I'm excited. Listen, let's dive straight into the questions and let's get into it. So, Anthony, tell us, what have been the most important lessons that you have learned along your journey that we call life so far?
Look, mate, I wrote a very key important thing down here, and I really reflected on this question. I really look at lessons as things that the individual needed to go to build upon your character, to build upon your person, and really harnessing that will, to want to master the skill that you learn from these lessons. So whether it be from a tough breakup or attempting something and failing, I do think there is a hidden message in there, and I think it's how you will go about that perseverance and wanting to know why, and understand the lessons from that. From that particular event in your life. Could be traumatic. It could be business. Like I said, it could be personal breakup. It's how you go about it and how you put one foot forward in front of the other, and really don't look back, because in hindsight, Phil, and you can agree on this, is the past is the past. You cannot ever go back and change it. You've just got to what the decision that you make and what you've done and whatever it may be, wrong or right, you have to live with that. And a lot of people can either go downhill or a lot of people can go uphill with that. And I like to think I've been thrown around the ringer a few times and have really started to work on that growth and seize those opportunities and understand why at a highly intellectual level, to why those things have happened to me. And it's made me who I am today, and I haven't looked back.
So let me get that right. So Anthony, you believe that kind of everything happens for a reason, maybe, or certainly when things happen to you, it's not necessarily what happens to you, it's how you respond to those challenges that make you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, a great philosopher by the name of Alan Watts says is what the universe does is also what you do, and what you do is also what the universe does. So there's definitely that polarity there, and I definitely do think you make decisions to pave the way for your path and your future. That people do make decisions, as for negative reasons, and they seem to just go downhill and get to that point of no return. And I really think to be successful in this game and really be an influencer and really educate people, I really think you need to take those lessons and really, really own it. And I read a book recently called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a. I'm not obviously going to curse. So it was keep it clean. So it was a very, very powerful book for me. And I really just learned to own everything that I did. It's like, you know what, this happened, and that's the way it is. And just, and forgiving yourself and learning, and even as men, just learning how to have that self-love for yourself and know your self-worth, and, and really understand what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, excellent. So let's just go down that kind of self-love, self-worth kind of route. As blokes, sometimes we maybe don't talk about that openly.
No,
maybe something that as a society that we not necessarily shun, but we certainly don't put a spotlight on it. Let's put a spotlight on that comment now, and if you can give us some examples of what exactly you mean by that and what that maybe looks like for people listening to this.
I really do think that for just for young men and men all over, and I've come across men from all sorts of life, all walks of life. And there's always been that ingrained and embedded into our mindset is don't cry, men don't cry. You know, now we're tough, you got to be tough. You know, someone punches you, punch them back. And I really felt like it's created this toxic masculine energy. Yes, we love our football. You know, there's fighting sports, mixed martial arts sports, and there's that real primitive mentality that we attach ourselves to as humans and go, wow, they're kicking each other's asses and this is cool. And, you know, but when we look at the root cause of it, and, you know, when men are struggling and when men are hurting, they are very fearful to go talk about it, especially in an open environment, because and there's that ego there, which I do want to talk about soon as well, which in some of your later questions, I will bring up the ego. And I really think that ego and that pride and that man pride and that being proud man, in that masculine man, like the protector, is they are scared to be vulnerable. And I think that is a big problem we are facing in today's society. I do feel like there is a very big shift towards people waking up and men now actually being comfortable with exploring that part of themselves and exploring that growth and really going to dark places within themselves through breath work or meditation or, you know, through other different means people are using. I really feel like men are now starting to get into that environment, into that space where they're good, they're comfortable, they are going into spaces where they can talk and share their feelings. And just my experiences alone going to, you know, men's circle retreats and being there to self-discover and being there to have things knock on the door a little bit and just go into your head and go, okay, maybe that's going to come up. And I've been able to achieve that by doing a lot of shamanistic breathing techniques as well that I've been learning, and it's been phenomenal. It brings up a lot. It's just all about breathwork control, and just to give you a bit of information on it, it's a controlled deep breathing exercise through the chest, and you are aware of it, but the sort of breathing and repeating that in rhythm and timing, and it really does create chemical changes in the body by oxidizing the blood and oxidizing the blood vessels. And it's really, really interesting stuff. And it brings up a lot of stuff. And I found that, you know, you're completely vulnerable there. I mean, I was a mess, I was in tears, and it was just really good to let stuff out. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm crying over, but it's there, it's coming out, and it feels good. And, you know, and I was in an environment where it wasn't like, oh, you're crying, you're a pussy. It's more like, yeah, like, let's talk about it, let's expand it. And I really feel us, the people that are waking up to this cause, are really doing a good thing out there for men as well, and exposing this to men and allowing a lot of men, especially young men, to enter this environment and enter this world where they can feel safe to share. Because as you know, there are a lot of men with their eyes closed out there that are suffering.
Man, absolutely. And you touch on a topic of, you know, let's not dress it up in any other terms, in terms of mental health, you know, and the impact of, you know, what you do physically and the habits that maybe you adopt on a daily basis that can actually have that positive impact on not just men's mental health. I mean, we're talking about it because, you know, we're just kind of talking as who we are and what we are, you know, and it's definitely something that's quite close to home. And like you say, there's definitely a conscious shift in society. And I'd like to go a little bit more, like you just talked about, into that ego and what maybe you do that you would tell, and things that you would tell, you know, teachers of today, you know, to be teaching within schools. You know, what type of things would you have loved to have been taught to you, which you believe would have actually had a positive impact on you and your mental health and state and things like that?
Phil, that's an excellent question. I cannot wait to dive into this one, mate. Let's start back to how to be successful to start with. Let's go right down to the root cause of that, like all the way to the beginning, right to the ego. Let's just address this question one big hit the best I can. I do think it is important to have a bit of routine and a bit of structure in your life, whether it be a waking up routine or morning routine. As you know, me and you are both a big fan of cold water therapy. I know right now in these cold winter months, the last thing you want to do is you've just woken up out of bed and you're like, I could just go have a cold shower right now, but I'm probably not going to. It
definitely challenges that mental robustness in this time.
Mate, it definitely does. I've done it a few times. I'll do it in the evening. Like I could do it in the evening when the body's like, you know, sort of on the ready to wind down. But when you're waking up, I just feel like you've been in your warm bed all night. It just sucks. But the cold water therapy, I'm very big on through a mentor of mine eating a lot of fruit. I start my day with a big fruit salad. I do my weekly fruit shopping every week. It's probably my most biggest expense as far as nutrition's concerned. And I love that because it gives me a fresh start to the day. You feel good, it hydrates you, and it just really sets you up for the day, knowing that you put something from the earth into your body, and it's just going to give you a huge amount of output. And I've always, I say this to my students as well as an educator. Your input is your output. You're gonna you feed yourself with Maccas, you feed yourself with Hungry Jacks, you go to Coles or Woolies and you buy all the junk food, and you go eat it around at school, and you're having these constant sugar spikes, and you're feeling like crap, and you're not putting nutritious food in your body. Your output's going to be bad. You're going to feel negative. You're going to feel on edge. You're going to feel like there's a target on your back because you are erratic because you're not feeding yourself right. Your brain's not processing things right because you're not feeding what it needs to cope. And going into what you said about the ego, I feel I've got this book right here that I have been reading, and for every person wanting to make a change, and this is not just a sales pitch for this guy. This book I'm reading, and I'm no means, Phil, I'm not a religious person. There's in this book, but this here, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, by David R. Hawkins, who's written a PhD, really goes into the ego mechanisms of things that we may experience as adults. That he's come up with this. I'm going to say it, like, trying to speak as dummy terms as I can and summarize as quick as I can. Mm-hmm. He's done this map of the conscious universe, and currently, right now, that we can go from level 0 all the way up to level 1,000. Currently, where we sit is about 200. That if you're going to measure it, and put a figure on it, so we can understand it. Calibration levels of like anywhere from 0 to like 75. You're seeing things like guilt, shame, anxiety. With anxiety comes withdrawal, and with fear, and there's pride. And pride was a big one. It's more up there with the calibration levels of 75. And look at pride. And I'll give you a prime example. You get into an argument with someone and you think you're right, but yeah, and they're wrong, but you're not willing to meet halfway. And we've all been there in that situation where we've been too proud just to really climb up that lifeguard tower and look down. And I think, and what he does is he explores every single one of those individual facets and looks at the ego mechanisms attached to those. And when I say by ego mechanisms, I mean, as we know, there are 3 parts to the ego. We have the id, which is our like conscious primal drive. We have the super ego, which is sort of the moral compass of the ID part of the ego, the id, and just the ego. And that super ego's, it's more of that like voice in your ear, little nana on your shoulder. As I've been told many times, that little nana in your ear going, hey, you probably shouldn't go do that, or you probably shouldn't go attack that person, or go sleep around, or be a misogynistic pig. I think there's all those negative thoughts that do come up. So it's sort of that voice of reason. And I really feel like, and again, one of the big lessons that I have learned, going back to your previous question, was trying to master the ego and trying to understand the ego and trying to experience the ego in all forms of all shapes and forms, and trying to recognize when parts of my ego are kicking in. And it's a challenge, and you never do stop learning, Phil. And I think if I was going to put out a message to educators and teachers, it would just be simply go, learn your ego, learn how to master it, and really look through the world through what it is and not what you've been told about what it is. Yeah, if you're feeling what I'm putting out there, Webby.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's something that, if spoken to more with the youth, with younger people, and they're more aware of it from a younger age, then maybe they don't need to get themselves into scenarios where they might regret things. If they have a better awareness early on in life about, ego and how that might get the better of them in certain scenarios as they're growing up. I think it's powerful what you've just said, and I'm sure people will want to kind of delve into that. And thank you for showing that book. And going back to books and things like that, I know you're a big and avid reader. Is that something that you've always done, or is that something that was kind of given to you a little bit later on in life? How did that become part of your daily kind of routine?
Look, I'll definitely expand on that for you, Phil. Going back to what you said, what would I wish I got told when I was, what I wish I was been taught as a high school, as a high school student, what would I like to be taught? I'd love to be taught the stock market. Really do. Stock market, taxation, property. What happens when you sell a property? Fees. Things that adults really need to know. And I really do feel like, yes, that is playing the game of society, and being that protector of the status quo in a weird way. But those things are very important to know. We learn algebra. We learn facts about things that I can't even just recall. Like, what happened in 1929 and what was the Spanish Inquisition? It's like, I don't give a shit. How do I apply for a loan? What do I need to do? Do I need a sizable deposit? How do I get that? How do I be a successful adult so when I can retire, I'm not gonna suffer? And I suppose what I wish I did get taught early on were those things, as well as harnessing the ego and being pointed into the direction of books. And I hated reading as a kid. I really did. I didn't read any books. I was very much into my sports. Always. I was a swimmer. I was always in the pool. I was playing hockey. Always doing something outside, playing in tree houses. Very, very active kid. And my mum wanted me to read, but I was very sort of against that, I suppose, because I didn't want to read Goosebumps or fairy tales. I really started reading things that intrigued me. And probably the first book that got me was Arnold Schwarzenegger's big, thick encyclopedia on bodybuilding. And I read that back to front, and then I read it again, and I was like, wow, this fitness game is quite cool. And I got into my gym, and that's the other thing I wish we got taught at school. Fitness. It's not all about sport and basketball and this, that. We should be really learning how to move our bodies, because what's the most common form of recreation that's available to us right now? I could walk out down to 2 minutes down the road, and there are 3 24-hour gyms at my disposal. And I really think understanding those movement patterns, because you don't lose it, you lose it. And you train for the rest of your life, you're going to have a very good, strong sense of being. And going into the book thing, as I said, I've just shown you a book I'm reading now, Transcending Levels of Consciousness. And can I mention my mentor's name, Phil? Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So, I said, by the way, Mitch, I hope you end up watching this and you're very proud of me. Mitch Vickridge, he is, I call him the Western shaman. He really is. He's really gone deep into the jungle, back out, and really been able to westernize. Been really big part of my journey and my success into this mindfulness space and the ego death, and really putting me onto books. As I said, this one right here, Transcending Levels of Consciousness, is a very hard read, very confronting, but oh my God, you will take a lot out of it. And you will learn a lot about yourself within this book. And
going to what you said in terms of kind of not being a reader, but what I'm picking up in terms of that first book that you did read, would it be safe to say that it was kind of passion driven? You were kind of connected to that kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger fitness world, and that became an easier read for you when you kind of unlock that purpose or that passion, and then you can seek out those types of books.
I really do think we need to be, the education system does need to change. And I really feel like as we move into the modern century, and technology's developing quicker than we can blink an eye, I really feel that we should be fostering things around children's interests. My main interest in getting into the weightlifting game was because I was bullied as a high school kid, and ended up changing schools for it, and really didn't like my time my time early on in high school. And I felt like that was what was an interest. It was more of a motivator to look physical and be physically fit and look the part and look like you know, and that again, that's that ego validation. Like, oh, he's a bigger guy. Look at him. I better not mess with him. And you know, that kind of felt good, you know, and you know, and you're in that mindset like, oh, women like that, and you know, and it's like protection, and that's a whole different conversation in itself. But I really do feel that we need to be tailoring things to kids' interests early, and fostering that curiosity very, very early. And you know, especially when they get to high school, and tailoring things and really going, hey, you could make a job out of this. And if it's something completely not the 9-to-5 norm, and it's like, okay, then give them the skill set and how to make it a business, and how to make them an empire out of it. And that's what we need to do.
Monetize a passion.
Yes, and harness your passion. What I always ask my students when they're a bit lost, I go, what do you want to do? If money was no object in the world, what would you do? And yeah, what would you do? If money was not an issue, what would you do? And and some of the responses back, like, you know, oh, veterinarian, or I'd love to like travel and show people around, and you know, I'd love to, you know, coach sport, and you know, and I know coaching sports, you know, the top level, especially here in Australia, is very hard to get into, but you know, these kids are finding, you know, they're identifying that they've got these passions for things, and you know, you can build businesses out of these. They've just got to be shown the blueprints on how to do it. And yeah, I really feel like us as educators, we are in a very powerful position to be able to foster that environment, you know, teach them and be totally real with them.
Yeah. Listen, let me ask you another question then. Let's kind of look at, if you were to lose everything, you know, everything that you've kind of established, you know, your businesses, your network, your entrepreneurism, if you were to lose everything today, but you still kept that knowledge, knowing what you know, what would you do? Where would you start, and what would be your kind of your game plan back to where you're at?
Well, excellent question, Phil. Excellent question. Losing everything now with the knowledge I have, I would be moving to Canada, and I'll be very much exploring alternative market opportunities there, and trying to capitalize on those alternative markets in the alternative medicine space, and look at also getting into that field of that life coaching as well, with these alternative medicines as well. Like, you know, really getting into that space of showing people a different reality of themselves and what they can and can achieve. How would I go about it? Just what I've learned now, what I've been learning, and the journey and path I'm on. As I said, strip me away, without my job, without my house, my car, my clothes on my back. Like, who am I? And what am I here for? And I'm really only starting to figure that out, and only been starting to figure that out over the last year, really. And that's really to guide and inspire people, and lead, and really want to and be that person that is speaking up. I know there's a lot of people out there on YouTube, and you know, there's a lot of influencers out there saying some pretty out there far-fetched things. And I always just look back to Mitch, who's not only a dear friend of mine, but very much the sort of my inspiration for getting into this field, because of the impact that you can have on people. So for me, going back to the root core of your question, Phil, I would pack up with my last dollars and cents I could scramble together, and I'll go start fresh. I'll probably go Canada, and you know, probably go somewhere like, you know, America maybe, but most likely Canada, mate. That would probably be my deal, and start fresh there in a completely different space, out of my comfort zone, where I can really test the power of my networking skills and my ability to build really quality relationships with people.
Interesting that people always think that everyone's got things figured out, you know, and yeah. Then in terms of, you know, you've still been on that journey that we call life, and everyone thinks that success is the tip of the mountain, is a destination. But I think what you just hit on then is beautiful in terms of, and hopefully people got that, is that everyone's still on their journey, no matter where people perceive people to be at. You know, we're always learning. We're always, you know, we're always realizing who we want to become. And I read it a couple of weeks ago, and it basically, a book I was reading said that who do you look up to, or who do you want to become? And the best answer that came back was yourself in 10 years, because ultimately you're always chasing the better version of you,
Mm.
and it's something that you never get to, because that 10 years is elusive. It's always going to be the next 10 years, the next 10 years, but ultimately it's always about just becoming a better version of you. And I thank you for kind of picking up on that, because people will look at somebody like yourself in a stereotypical way, potentially, and assume that you have all of the success and everything figured out. But it's humbling to know that everybody is on this journey. Everybody is still evolving, and also becoming the person.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there, but don't get me wrong, mate. It's not been easy. It's not been easy to get to this point. I wouldn't say I'm a millionaire, successful person. I like to feel that I'm very, very well balanced within my thoughts and my mindset, my outlooks on things. And like I said before, you never stop learning, and you do never stop growing. And how high is the bar? It's literally it's the limit. Wherever you want to go, you've just got to have the will to require the discipline, to want to learn it, to get to that point. You really need to do it. Another great quote from Alan Watts. He doesn't like using the word discipline. Likes using the word skill. You really got to master this skill if you want to be successful. And I think now what I've been learning now is I've started shutting out what other people have said. And I tried many different businesses in the past. I've tried fitness retreats on Rock Nest, and that didn't go well for me, unfortunately. I was trying to get into a frozen yogurt franchise business, and I got scared and backed out. And I was always listening to other people in my ear, and now for the first time ever, it's just like, jump into it. And I think where the comfort zone for me initially was, if I run my own little massage business, I can really establish myself in this game. And yes, it's successful. Yes, I helped a lot of people and fixed a lot of people, and I've treated hundreds of people. But it's something I'm passionate about, and I really enjoy it, because you're putting people on the right path. Not only are they coming here for physical work, they're coming here and they're hopefully feeling mentally energized when they leave, and sort of inspired me now to move on the next chapter of what I'm looking into. And it's opening an infrared sauna center with some therapists in there, and really moving into that alternative healthcare space. A lot of positive studies been done in infrared sauna. Obviously, there's a lot of studies against everything, really. There's a lot of people saying, "Oh, this, that, don't do this," and it's like, you know what? I'm not listening to you. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it and just take that risk, because what are you without taking the risk? You're not going to learn from anything. You're not going to grow. You're just going to stay in that comfort zone. You're not going to go out to the growth zone. You got to go through the fear zone to get to the growth zone. And I even right now admit I'm in that fear zone, about to launch something new, and it's exciting. Being in that fear zone, it's challenging. It's like, what if it fails, and what if it's so successful? And it's like, right, you stick to your plans, you stick to your routines, you stick to your marketing strategy, you network, you believe in the power of what you can do, and really believe in the power of what you can do. Actually, you mentioned I was initial creator of the WA Fitness Network, and now we've got over 8,500 members, where people of all walks of life that can just come and connect on Facebook into the around Perth. It's purely Perth members or WA members only, for WA people to network, discuss, ask advice, and it's obviously running a big group comes with some of its stresses. A lot of people post things, and people don't like comments, and people don't like hearing things, and you've got to monitor that. And it's just being able to be just being firm, and just be like, well, no, this is staying, and this has a right to be here. I've seen some pretty stupid things posted on there, and when they're stupid, you just get rid of them. But I really feel I really feel that you've just got to shut out those outside voices, those non-risk takers, and as especially as kids get older, that they'll start realizing they seem like there's naysayers. They go, "I know, like this, that," and the people that sit on the fence where they're just really comfortable and working their 9 to 5, and that's it. I really feel like you need to step out of that boundary to be successful and to give it a go. Like just to say, if I wake up tomorrow and, you know, doesn't go ahead and it's something goes to shit about it, I know I tried. And I know if I started it and it's a great success, I know I can, you know, look back and go, I took that risk and took that challenge and understood it, because either way you can take a positive out of it. You know, leasing commercial real estate, going through that process, understanding lease agreements, you know, understanding, you know, council requirements, just simple things like how to set up a business, like for a bank, and making your business as an entity, and insurance, and all these sort of things that come with it. It's always going to be a positive learning experience.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Anthony, we're coming to the end of this interview, but I just want to finish, you know, are there any final points going back to, you know, the main lessons that you have taken that you would love to pass on to people listening to this today?
Understand your ego, really explore it. I think the key for any self-development, you really need to understand the mechanisms of the ego. Mm-hmm. And I really think when we are doing that and actually showing more love to one another, and agree with me if you don't feel, but we're all connected consciousness anyway. Consciousness is massive. And it's universal. And I really think by showing more love, showing more compassion, and really being non-judgmental and really understanding those ego mechanisms, I wish I learned that at 16, because it would have humbled me a lot through my 20s. And I know I was a very egotistical 20-year-old. You know, I was in the gym, I was training hard, I was loving my working out. I did a few powerlifting comps, and you know, then, you know, benching 140 kilos, you know, for reps. And, you know, that really can satisfy the ego and really go, oh, look at me, I'm macho. And I really feel like those sort of emotions and things are very toxic energies. But they got me to where I am now, because I always knew deep embedded that the world does need to change. The world does need to shift its consciousness to a higher plane. And going back to my 16-year-old self, take risks. Don't listen to people in your ear saying don't do that, you can't. And really master your ego, master that shit, because it will do you wonders long term.
Beautiful. Anthony, thank you very much for your time, insight, knowledge, and wisdom. All of those key points and lessons learned are going to be priceless for people. I am sure people listening, I've thoroughly enjoyed that, taken a lot of lessons, you know, and hopefully they will go away and apply those lessons along their journey in order to master this journey that we call life. So again, thank you again, Anthony, for your time.
Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
See you, mate. Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.